Yes, it was breaking news. Diddy adopted a white child. I want you to tell them the story about how I adopted you. I adopted you because I felt that you could, you know, um, enjoy also having a black parent to take care of you and help you out.
There are moments in the entertainment industry when the curtain briefly lifts, revealing a reality darker than anyone imagined. And when it comes to the latest developments surrounding Sean Diddy Combs, what we're seeing isn't just scandal, it's systemic. It's a story of power, silence, manipulation, and a growing list of victims. And now, Terrence Howard, yes, the acclaimed actor, is stepping forward with allegations that not only add fuel to the fire, but may change everything we thought we knew. Terrence didn't come forward lightly. His words weren't tossed off for shock value. They carried the weight of someone who has seen too much, who's tired of pretending everything is fine. In a recent podcast appearance, he dropped a bombshell. Diddy allegedly tried to lure him into an intimate encounter under the guise of mentorship. According to Terrence, what started as a professional invitation, helping Diddy with acting, quickly turned into something deeply uncomfortable. And the moment Terrence realized what was really happening, he cut all ties. He made it clear this wasn't an isolated incident. According to him, there's a disturbing pattern. Diddy allegedly preys on black men in private settings, what some are calling freak-offs, where lines get blurred, boundaries disappear, and reputations are destroyed. And Terrence isn't just concerned about himself. He spoke about others in the industry who faced similar experiences but chose to stay silent, out of fear, out of shame, out of self-preservation. Because when you speak out against someone with as much power and reach as Diddy, the consequences don't just stay behind closed doors, they ripple through your entire career. But that wasn't the end of Terrence's testimony, not even close. After the podcast aired, he posted a cryptic video on Twitter, one that many now believe was a direct warning to Diddy and others protecting him. In that video, Terrence hinted at truths he'd been holding back, truths that could bring everything crashing down. He didn't name names, but he didn't have to. The implication was clear: there's more, much more. And then came the whispers. Industry insiders began hinting that Terrence wasn't just talking about his own experiences. He allegedly knew something about Diddy's adopted daughter, Ava. And when the federal indictment against Diddy was recently updated with new charges and anonymous victims, speculation exploded. Was Ava one of them? Let's rewind. In 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, Diddy made a surprise announcement. He had adopted a young white girl named Ava Barron. The moment was bizarre, sudden, and entirely out of character. There had been no build-up, no prior discussion, just an Instagram Live where Diddy introduced Ava to the world as his daughter. And just like that, she became part of the Combs family. The video, at first glance, seemed heartwarming, but now, with everything that's come to light, it feels different. Office Ava's body language, the way Diddy spoke, the fact that she disappeared from the public eye shortly afterward, all of it raises questions. Too many questions. What made it even stranger was Diddy comparing his adoption of Ava to Madonna's controversial adoptions, cases that have long been criticized for bypassing proper legal procedures and exploiting vulnerable children under the guise of charity. The moment he made that comparison, alarms started going off. Why model your adoption on a situation surrounded by ethical concerns? But it gets worse. In the now infamous video, Ava appears visibly uncomfortable. Her tone is uncertain. Her responses feel rehearsed. And Diddy? He's steering the conversation, trying to paint himself as the savior. It's unsettling, especially given the accusations that have followed him for years. Accusations of coercion, exploitation, and abuse. And then, Ava vanished. Aside from a few scattered photos with Diddy's twin daughters, she faded from the spotlight completely. No birthday posts, no red carpets, no acknowledgement. It was as if she'd been erased. Now, with Terrence speaking out and the feds digging deeper, Ava's name is surfacing again. Sources close to the investigation claim she may be one of the new victims included in the updated indictment. And if that's true, it changes everything, because it suggests that what happened with Ava wasn't just an odd adoption, it might have been something far more sinister. Behind the scenes, Diddy's former bodyguard Gene Deal has also started speaking out. According to Gene, the adoption was nothing more than a PR stunt, a calculated move to soften Diddy's image during the chaos of the pandemic. Once the cameras stopped rolling, Ava was allegedly pushed aside, used, forgotten, just another pawn in a game built on power and perception. What Gene Deal implied wasn't just a dig at Diddy's character, it was an indictment of the entire image he had built. According to Gene, Diddy used Ava to project the image of a benevolent father figure. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. He claimed Ava was never truly treated as a daughter. Instead, she was part of a larger manipulation, someone whose presence served a public purpose, but was privately discarded once the optics were no longer needed. That suspicion only deepened when fans rewatched the video where Ava is introduced. It wasn't just her visible discomfort, it was the bizarre focus on Diddy's sons. Why weren't his daughters present front and center? If Ava expressed interest in playing with the girls, why was she shown surrounded by the boys? Some began to suspect the entire interaction was staged, carefully orchestrated to control the narrative and avoid scrutiny. And that's when the rumors started swirling, not just about Ava's sudden disappearance, but about what might have really happened behind the scenes. Some suggested Diddy had videos involving Ava that were not only inappropriate, but potentially criminal. Gene hinted that federal investigators were actively looking for these tapes. He didn't say what they contained, but his tone left little to the imagination. He wasn't just implying exploitation, he was suggesting evidence. According to Gene, the feds were executing warrants with specific instructions. Look for photos or footage of underage girls in compromising situations. It wasn't vague, it was explicit. And in that context, Ava's abrupt exit from the public eye no longer looked like a family decision. It looked like damage control. Meanwhile, 50 Cent, who's long been one of Diddy's most vocal critics, appeared to know more than he ever let on. For years, he dropped cryptic messages online, mocking Diddy, hinting at secrets, warning people to pay attention. Most dismissed it as pettiness, old beef from a missed business deal. But now those warnings are being reconsidered. 50 even announced a documentary, Did He Do It? A title that seemed like a joke at first, but now reads like a prophecy. And in one of his most pointed messages, 50 wrote, "They know they can't charge him with what we saw, but they also know we can't unsee it." What exactly did we see? And what did he mean? That question became even more chilling when the federal indictment was updated. 2 new anonymous victims, new charges, and new language, far more graphic, more detailed, more damning than before. According to the documents, Diddy is accused of organizing what he called freak-offs, elaborate, often recorded sessions where women were coerced into engaging in commercial acts. These weren't just parties, they were orchestrated performances, directed and manipulated by Diddy, often involving others, sometimes including men. And it wasn't just emotional or verbal abuse. These were acts of force, fraud, and coercion. The indictment described a system: women transported across state lines, payments disguised as gifts, threats disguised as guidance, careers dangled like bait, and Ava potentially caught in the middle of it all. The documents didn't name her, but the timeline, the patterns, the sudden entrance and disappearance, all of it painted a haunting picture. Even more disturbing was the language used by the prosecution. They described how Diddy used his power, wealth, and status to manipulate vulnerable people into silence. He didn't just coerce, he allegedly made sure they couldn't walk away, whether through financial dependence, intimidation, or threats of exposure. It was control disguised as charisma. The new charges claim that from at least 2009 to 2018, and again from 2021 to 2024, Diddy operated with calculated precision. He recruited, transported, and harbored individuals for acts of commercial exploitation. And he didn't act alone. The documents refer to members and associates of what they call the Combs Enterprise, a network of enablers who allegedly helped facilitate, conceal, and maintain the system. And now, Ava may be the key to unraveling it all. Her sudden emergence, brief exposure, and swift vanishing act aren't just suspicious. They fit a pattern, one we've seen before. A young girl pulled into the spotlight, then pushed out of frame the moment things got complicated. A name introduced to make headlines, only to disappear when the story turned dark. What's most unsettling isn't just what might have happened, it's how quickly the world forgot. How a child was introduced as a daughter, praised in a live stream, then erased from memory when she no longer served the image. And if what insiders are saying is true, if Ava is one of the victims named in the updated indictment, then her story is far from over. Because if there's one thing we've learned from these revelations, it's that silence doesn't mean safety. And when people like Terrence Howard finally speak up, it's rarely the beginning of the story. More often than not, it's the moment everything else starts to unravel. If Terrence Howard's claims were already jaw-dropping, what came next shifted the story from disturbing to downright horrifying. As the indictment grew heavier, insiders began to murmur that Ava wasn't just a pawn in a PR stunt. She may have been a silent witness to something darker. And if that's true, then Terrence might not just be telling a story. He might be issuing a warning. What's striking is that Terrence didn't start this fight out of spite. He seemed reluctant, almost burdened by the knowledge he carried. But the more the walls started closing in around Diddy, the more Terrence seemed to recognize that silence would make him complicit, that whatever protection he was hoping to preserve wasn't worth the cost anymore. According to those close to the case, Ava could be the linchpin, someone who saw too much, too young, someone who wasn't supposed to matter until she did. Her presence in the indictment suggests that this wasn't just about grown women or adult victims. It was about an entire system that allegedly groomed, exploited, and discarded the vulnerable under the guise of power and protection. And that's where it gets even more chilling. The documents state that victims were promised career opportunities, shelter, safety, only to be turned into commodities. These weren't just mistakes or moral failures. They were calculated acts built into the structure of an empire that fed on obedience and fear. What Ava represents in this narrative is more than just a possible victim. She's the thread that could unravel everything. The moment the story stops being about flashy headlines and starts becoming something much darker, an indictment not just of one man, but of an entire system that protected him. The reactions from the public have been mixed. Some still refuse to believe that a man once considered a mogul, a mentor, a father figure, could be capable of such things. Others say they always knew, that the signs were there, that the industry's silence was never ignorance, it was willful. And that's what Terrence seems to be banking on now, that people are finally ready to listen, that when someone tells the truth, even if it's ugly, even if it implicates powerful names, we won't look away. But what does it mean for Ava? Her story is still shrouded in mystery. No public statements, no official confirmation. just whispers and documents, implication and speculation. But if the feds really have evidence that ties her to the case, if her name is in that file, buried under layers of redacted identities, then it's only a matter of time before we know everything. And when that happens, it won't just be Diddy's legacy on the line. It'll be the silence of everyone who looked the other way, the industry insiders who protected him, the publicists who buried the stories, the friends who smiled for the cameras while knowing the truth behind closed doors, every person who helped maintain the illusion of innocence. Because now that illusion is cracking. And the people stepping forward, Terrence, Gene Deal, even 50 Cent, are no longer playing by the rules. They're tearing pages from the playbook and setting them on fire. This isn't about gossip anymore. It's about justice. It's about the voices that were buried for too long. And it's about a girl named Ava, who might have entered this story as a forgotten footnote, but could leave it as the symbol of everything the industry tried to hide. Because in the end, the most dangerous thing about secrets is that they don't stay buried forever. They resurface in court documents, in whispers, in interviews, in indictments. And when they do, they don't just tell the truth. They expose the system that let the lies live so long.